At just 13 years old, Sophia stood before her father, Louis, her head bowed, hands trembling as she clutched the hem of her dress. His booming voice echoed through the house, heavy with disappointment. "Do you have nothing to say for yourself?" he thundered. Sophia flinched, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want this." Her mother, Isabella, only made it worse. Her cold gaze pierced through Sophia like ice. "Shameless? So young and already pregnant? How could I have given birth to someone like you?" Louis slammed his hand against the table, making the entire house tremble. "You have disgraced our family. Do you have any idea what people will say about us?" Isabella's voice was sharp. "Why are we even wasting words on her? She doesn't deserve to stay here. Let her face the consequences of her actions." Louis pointed toward the door. "Get out, and don't ever come back." Tears streamed down Sophia's face. "Please, Mama, I have no one." But Isabella's expression remained stone cold. "That's your problem." Before she knew it, she was outside. The cold air bit at her skin as the murmurs of the gathered neighbors stabbed at her like tiny needles. Shame, judgment, disgust. Then it started to rain. She ran through the dark streets, the downpour soaking her to the bone. Desperation guided her steps as she searched for shelter. She knocked on the door of an old house, but the man inside merely scowled. "There's no place for you here," he barked before slamming the door in her face. Exhausted and shivering, she wandered until she collapsed onto a park bench. But even there, she wasn't safe. From the shadows, 3 men emerged, their eyes gleaming with something dangerous. "What's a girl like you doing all alone?" one sneered. "Don't run," another called as Sophia's heartbeat roared in her ears. Panic surged through her. She bolted, her feet slipping on the slick pavement, the sound of footsteps pounding behind her. She darted into a narrow alley and collapsed against the wall, her body trembling. "Why does everyone hate me?" she whispered, her tears mixing with the rain. That night, she curled up beneath a tree, the bitter cold seeping into her bones. Sleep brought no comfort, only nightmares. Her parents' faces haunted her, their words cutting deep. "You deserve this," Isabella's voice echoed in her mind. Morning came, but Sophia barely felt it, weak, cold, drained. Then a voice broke through the silence. "Child, what are you doing here?" A woman stood before her, holding a large umbrella. Her eyes were kind, her presence warm. Sophia tried to respond, but her body gave in. Darkness took her as she collapsed into the woman's arms. "Don't be afraid," the woman whispered. "I'll help you." Her name was Margaret, a kind-hearted baker. She took Sophia into her small bakery, a place filled with warmth and the comforting scent of freshly baked bread. She wrapped Sophia in a blanket, gave her tea, and let her rest. The next morning, the sweet aroma of bread stirred Sophia awake. Margaret placed a glass of milk and a small loaf in front of her. "Eat, you need your strength," she said gently. Sophia hesitated. The words of her parents still echoed in her head. The shame, the guilt. Tears welled up as she touched the bread. "I don't deserve this. I am the disgrace of my family." Margaret sat beside her and took her trembling hands. "Listen to me, child. No one deserves to be treated that way. You are a good girl, and you deserve to live." With Margaret's help, Sophia started working in the bakery, but the town wasn't as kind. "Who is that girl?" a woman whispered. "She doesn't belong here." Margaret's voice was firm. "What I do is none of your concern. If you don't like it, leave." Not everyone shared Margaret's kindness. One day, Esteban, the miserly owner of the local grocery store, entered the bakery. His eyes narrowed at Sophia. "Do you know who she is? She was thrown out of her own home. A girl like that will ruin your reputation." Margaret remained calm. "If you have nothing better to do, then leave. She's done nothing wrong. But the rumors spread like wildfire. People whispered, "The pregnant girl lives with Margaret." The judgmental stares became unbearable. One evening, as Sophia took out the trash, a group of young men approached her. "Who do you think you are?" sneered Carlos, a burly man. "I just want to live in peace," Sophia murmured. Carlos shoved her roughly. She stumbled, landing hard on the ground. "Enough!" Margaret's voice cut through the night as she rushed to Sophia's side. She helped her up, turning to the men with a warning glare. "If you can't behave, then stay away." Carlos smirked. "Then don't be surprised if people stop buying from you." Margaret's grip on Sophia tightened. "I don't care about the business. I care about her." Sophia's heart swelled with gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't alone. Margaret's firm voice echoed through the bakery as she grabbed a broom and chased the troublemakers out. But Carlos smirked before leaving. "Remember, old woman, your bakery won't be safe for long." Once they were gone, Margaret sat beside Sophia and took her hand. "You must keep going, Sophia," she said firmly. "You're not just living for yourself, but for the child within you. Don't let them win." But Sophia felt her life slipping further out of control. That night, she was haunted by nightmares. The bakery, once a warm and safe place, now felt overshadowed by the hostility of the town. The next morning, as Margaret kneaded dough, she glanced at Sophia. "Stay inside today," she urged, but Sophia shook her head. "I can't just sit here. I want to help." Margaret smiled gently but firmly. "You need to take care of yourself first, child." Later that afternoon, while running errands, Sophia ran into Isabella at the market. She was selling vegetables, her expression cold as ever. "Oh, you're still here?" Isabella sneered. "I thought you'd be gone by now." Sophia kept her voice low. "I just want to buy some vegetables." But Isabella's mocking tone caught the attention of others. "How dare you show your face here?" she snapped. People turned to stare. Sophia took a step back as the weight of their judgment bore down on her. "You disgrace this neighborhood," Isabella shouted, her voice loud enough to draw a crowd. Sophia pleaded, her voice trembling. "I just want to live in peace." Isabella let out a cruel laugh. "Peace? People like you don't deserve peace." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Humiliated, Sophia turned and ran, tears streaming down her face. Each step felt heavier, as if the weight of their hatred was crushing her. That evening, as Sophia cleaned up the bakery, the door suddenly burst open. Carlos and two of his friends walked in, their faces dark with intent. "Where's Margaret?" Carlos demanded. "She's not here," Sophia stammered. "Good," he smirked. "Then we'll talk to you." He stepped closer. "Since you arrived, all we hear are rumors. We're losing customers because of you." He slammed his hand on the counter. His friends began knocking over fresh bread and tossing ingredients onto the floor. "Stop, please," Sophia cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. But Carlos just laughed. "Consider this a lesson. Leave before things get worse." As they walked out, Sophia collapsed to the floor, trembling hands gathering the ruined bread. Silent tears fell as she tried to clean up the mess. When Margaret returned, she was horrified. "What happened here?" Sophia sobbed. "I can't stay. I only bring you trouble." Margaret knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "You're not going anywhere. We'll face this together." But Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that staying would only make Margaret's life harder. 2 days later, a letter arrived from the landlord. If the rent wasn't paid within a week, the bakery would be seized. Margaret tried to hide her worry, but the pain in her eyes was impossible to miss. Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. "I'll leave. Maybe if I go, they'll leave you alone." But Margaret stood firm. "This is your home. You stay." That night, as the bakery lay silent, Sophia stared at the ceiling, her hand resting on her stomach. "Anna," she whispered, "I can't stay forever. For Margaret's sake, and yours. I have to go." At dawn, she packed her few belongings into an old bag and left a letter on the table. "Dear Margaret, I'm so grateful for everything you've done for me, but I can't stay and cause you more problems. I'll find another place to live. I love you so much. Sophia." She left the letter, took one last look at the sleeping Margaret, and quietly slipped out the door. Sophia wandered the streets until she found a rundown boarding house on the outskirts of town. No one there asked about her past, but her few coins would only last for a few nights. "Room 3. No problems if you can't pay," the landlord, Dolores, muttered as she handed Sophia a key. The room was small, damp, and dark. Sophia sat on the bed, holding back tears as she thought about her uncertain future. Now, in this lonely place, she had only Anna and her fears. "It'll be okay," she whispered, but even she wasn't sure if it was true. The next morning, she searched for work, but rejection met her at every turn. "No positions available. You're too young. We don't want trouble." The bigger her belly grew, the harsher the stares became. The weight of rejection pressed down on her with every step. As she returned to the boarding house, she found a group of children laughing outside her door. "Look at her belly," one of them shouted, "like a giant balloon." Laughter filled the air. "She must be a bad person," another child sneered. "Why else would her family throw her out?" Sophia tried to defend herself, but their laughter only grew louder. That night, she lay in the darkness, clutching her stomach, whispering words of comfort to Anna and to herself.